From your point of view, what happened to the crude oil supply side?
Well, we continue to see inventory high in the U.S. and rising. There seems to be a new cycle with regards to crude that happened right towards the end of the year. Crude oil bottomed exactly at the same day that stocks did, right on December the 24th on Christmas Eve. So it's interesting that there's been a high degree of correlation, positive correlation, between treasury yields, crude oil, and stocks. They've all sort of moved in the same direction. Saudi Arabia being willing to cut supply is helpful. I think they're probably going to need to cut a lot more based on at least my view of how much the U.S. production has grown. The real question, of course, is demand, and does that fall off? Right now, we don't have any answer as to that that's definitely the case, but if the economy starts to slow meaningfully, then demand will fall off and inventories are high, so that's a negative. Near term, technically, crude oil bottomed and has been quite bullish, and rising into the low 50s is a very big positive in the short run, but it's come a bit too far too quickly. So I can see crude stalling and pulling back a little bit, along with stocks, just because we've had a big run-up in recent weeks.
Do you think the U.S. oil producers can earn enough when the price stick on the 50s?
I think, from what I've read, my understanding is that things will be fine in the 50s. I don't think there's any reason to fret, at that price. I think the 30s is a different story. I don't think Saudi Arabia wants prices to go down dramatically. I think they'll step in and start to cut more aggressively next year or this year. One thing at a time. We've already seen a big move. We've seen almost a 20% rise in crude oil in the last few weeks. So it's important to digest what's happened and try to understand the reasons why this has happened and where things can go.
What's happening to the U.S. dollar from your point of view? Professional view.
I've been of the view that the dollar should peak out this year and start to turn down over the next couple of years. We've already seen a pretty dramatic decline in the dollar over the last few weeks. I think, if anything, it's nearing an area where that should stall and we should start to rally over the next couple months. I think we'll get a bounce, which means that a lot of the movement in the commodities higher will probably reverse. We'll probably see a pullback in precious metals and some of the other commodities in the short run. Longer term, I think the dollar, from spring probably until the end of the year, will start to turn back lower sharply, and that might be a better time for hard assets, for commodities and everything else.
How's that trend affect the gold market, and what is a technical outlook on the gold?
Yeah, see, gold really needs to get above 1375 to think that it's intermediate term bullish. It's been a nice bounce. We've moved 100 points in about 2 months, but now up at 1300, it's really a challenging area for gold in the short run. So the dollar's been pulling back, and that's good for gold. Rates have been actually, in the last few weeks, they've risen. So I think that in general, if rates start to pull back again, treasury yields, and the dollar can continue to fall, that would be good for gold, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I think that gold and silver probably pull back a little bit over the next month and two, and then that's time to probably buy again. You have to be very tactical, I think, with these markets, just because there's been a lot of volatility.